It's noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and where are you? Oh, Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. That's right, I almost forgot. And this is CarEdge Live for Friday, August 15th, payday, ladies and gentlemen, with your hosts, me, Ray in Ventnor, and, well, Zach, that handsome young dude in D.C. How are you today, handsome?
Doing okay, Pops. Happy Friday, everyone. Grateful for you being here with us. Today's show brought to you by us, CarEdge.com. If we can help you out with anything, folks, buy a car without the headache. Check it out, CarEdge.com. Shop new, used, research vehicles, track and project out your future vehicle's value. Save some money on insurance and warranties as well back at CarEdge.com. Dad, we got the latest and greatest inventory data from our friends over at Cox Automotive. And Audi, Lincoln, and Ram, well, they're struggling to sell anything, and they've got some big trouble. Let's look at, first and foremost, at the brand's days supply of inventory. Give us a quick overview. What is days supply, and why do we care?
Day supply is at the average daily sales rate, how long it would take you to sell the existing inventory that is on hand. So if you're a Toyota dealer, for instance, it would take 32 days to sell the existing inventory that you have if you were not to receive another car. And say you were on the other end of that spectrum, say Land Rover, well, it would only take you 130 days to sell the existing on-hand inventory.
So the higher that number, the more oversupplied or low demand that manufacturer is. The lower the number, the more control they have over their demand and their supply. Or I guess I should say their supply. Demand obviously could be super high or super low. So to your point, Dad, Toyota has a 32-day supply. We have not seen Cox Automotive report numbers like this that low for Toyota in a long, long time. Lexus there with a 33-day supply. That means for consumers, they don't have a lot of leverage. You go into a Toyota dealership or a Lexus dealership, they've got a lot of leverage on you because they don't have that many days supply of inventory. Yes. However, on the other end of the spectrum, Land Rover, or I'm going to remove the chat just for a second, Ram, Lincoln, Audi, those are the three brands that I called out in the title of today's show, Dad. 114 days supply for Audi, 117 days supply for Lincoln, 121 days supply for Ram. These are three brands, leaving Land Rover out of it for the moment. These are three brands that are mightily struggling and quite frankly can't sell anything. And thus you have more leverage, bigger incentives, things like that.
Yes, that would be a somewhat accurate statement. They can't sell anything is probably a bit of hyperbole, but they can't sell much of what they have, and they have to, well, pay you to a large degree to get you to want to buy their products.
Now, what we're going to do today, folks, is we're going to jump back and forth between this month's data, which you see on the screen right now, July days supply of inventory by brand, and last month's, June's days supply of inventory by brand. Because when you start to look month over month at what's going on here, there's some really interesting trends. And, Dad, I'm pretty sure we're seeing manufacturers are the ones that are having the biggest impact on the supply and demand story. They are cutting back production and shipments of vehicles. So let's start from left to right. So this is June. This was last month, or this was 2 months ago now. Toyota had a 39-day supply. Lexus had a 41-day supply. Again, jump to this month. We're at 32 and 33 days respectively. So that means more people are buying the available Toyotas than Toyota is shipping and getting on the ground at their dealerships. And it's getting, quite frankly, worse for consumers rather than better.
Exactly. Toyota always has kept a rather tight supply in relation to sales, and the supply has gotten tighter over the last 2 months, which means the likelihood of being able to work a favorable deal, and what I mean by a favorable deal, where it's favorable to the customer, where there's a significant enough savings, where the dealer wouldn't even have the nerve to ask for an additional deal or markup. To get a favorable deal today at a Toyota or Lexus dealer is less likely than it was 2 months ago, and 2 months ago it wasn't very likely.
Exactly. So that's what it's telling us here. So now we're back to June again. Honda, for the month of June, had a 61 days supply of inventory. And again, here in July now, a 53 days supply of inventory. So things got more difficult for Honda if you were looking to purchase a Honda. Then we had BMW in June with a 66 days supply of inventory. I hope folks aren't getting seasick here. 68 days supply of inventory in July. So at BMW, the days supply of inventory actually went up just a little bit. Now, Chevrolet in July had a 70-day inventory. That's down a little bit from where they were 2 months ago in June with a 72-day supply of inventory. And immediately, folks, if I go back to July, which I will in a second, we had that green line, which was the national average, popping up over here at 73 days. So the overall industry went from 82 days supply to 73 days supply, which is a big drop. It means that the industry got stronger in terms of their negotiating leverage versus us as consumers for new vehicles. But we'll keep going through brand by brand because, again, I think some of these are going to show some pretty alarming trends for what's happening. So, again, July, where we are now, Mercedes-Benz with a 73 days supply. Where was Mercedes-Benz in June, Dad? They were all the way over here with a 98 days supply of inventory. So Mercedes-Benz went from a 98 days supply of inventory to a 73 days supply of inventory in 1 month. Let's talk about that for a moment here. That is insanity.
Well, it means that they're trying to do a much better job of producing what is needed as opposed to just producing. So
they stopped producing and shipping some of their EVs. I mean, they have just stopped production altogether for some vehicles.
Yeah, they have become way more intentional as to what it is that they're going to produce and when it is that they're going to produce it. They understood that at a 98-day supply, that was significantly above the national average and was well above what a major luxury brand manufacturer would need to carry. And when you have that many days supply, that impacts down to the dealer level, also impacts the consumer level, because you look at BMW where they have a much shorter day supply. You can still get deals at BMW, but would those deals be quite as good as what you might be able to get for a comparable Mercedes-Benz? My guess is probably not. Mercedes, they have to be a bit more aggressive in their marketing and their incentives in order to keep sales moving.
I'm with you for the most part. I think this story is really simple, Dad. It's this. You don't have a 20 plus days supply decrease without stopping orders and production of your slowest selling vehicles. So I hear you on that, but I'm just going to make this crystal clear for our audience. Mercedes-Benz with a 73 days supply of inventory in July, and previously they had been at a 98 days supply 1 month prior. That's because they're stopping the production of their vehicles. That's the story here. That's what I want to hammer home. That's what I want people to take away.
Well, I think what you just showed is they're stopping production of their electric vehicles for the U.S. I don't know that they're necessarily stopping production of their ICE vehicles, but they have made a conscious decision to really cut back on the amount of EV inventory in this country. And one of the main drivers for that would be the fact that the federal tax credits are going to go away come September 30th. So they need to make sure, and their dealers need to make sure, that they have very few of those EVs left come October 1st.
Yeah, and I think, again, this shows how quickly these automakers can actually influence the numbers. Mitsubishi, 73 days supply in July. Let's compare that to June. In June, Mitsubishi had, where is it all the way over here? A 110 days supply of inventory. Pops, either Mitsubishi figured out how to sell a heck of a lot more cars, or they stopped shipping new orders to dealers in the month of July.
Well, but their inventory. I see what you're saying. This is June that we're looking at.
Yeah, June, 2 months ago, Mitsubishi had 110 days supply of inventory. In July, Mitsubishi had, where was it? Wait, did I misread this? I misread it. Sorry, I misread it.
Mitsubishi still has 109 days. Yeah.
Hyundai. I read Hyundai as Mitsubishi. That's on me. Hyundai, 73 days supply in July.
Yes.
Let's look at Hyundai now in June. Where was Hyundai? Hyundai was all the way over here at 113. So similar story. Same story as what I was saying for Mitsubishi. I don't know why I said Mitsubishi, though. Hyundai, Dad, went from 113 days supply of inventory to a 73 days supply of inventory. That is a 40 days swing. That is asinine. That is ridiculous. For those of you that don't want to get as nitty gritty in the numbers as us, essentially what that means is either Hyundai figured out how to sell their cars 30% faster than they previously were, or they cut back 30% of the inventory that they sent to dealers. Either way, that's nuts.
Or they brought in more vehicles than they had initially intended prior to tariffs going into effect. So they significantly increased on-hand inventory with pre-tariff vehicles, and those vehicles are now selling down, and that is
And they're not
why
replacing them. And they're not replacing them.
they're certainly not replacing them as quickly as they had built up that stockpile, because, well, to replace them, they're replacing them with vehicles that are more expensive.
I don't even know if they're replacing them with anything, is what this suggests to me, Dad. There's no way you can have a 40-day swing and you're still replacing inventory. We should get a Hyundai dealer on the show here with us, because my supposition is that those Hyundai dealers are not taking in new allocations of inventory. 40-day swing, Dad. They went from 100. Let me double check.
No, I get what you're saying, but you also have to recognize the fact that Hyundai has set record sales month after month after month. So yes, they are replacing inventory. They're just not replacing it as quickly as they had been, or had when they were stockpiling it, because they were trying to mitigate extra costs. At this point, they're just going to have to absorb most of those extra costs, or pass some of those extra costs on to their customers. But they have been setting records month in and month out. So I understand your supposition, but I think from a manufacturing standpoint, a lot of it had to do with the fact that they stockpiled pre-tariff inventory, and that is selling down.
Yeah. And they're not replacing it as quickly as they could or would. So
Yeah.
Hyundai's a big story here with what they're doing. Again, July, we're looking at how quickly inventory was turning in July versus how quickly inventory was turning back in June. The next brand on the list would be Subaru, with a 74 days supply of inventory. If we look back to June, Dad, Subaru, where are you, Subaru? They had a 78 days supply. So Subaru selling down just a little bit, but nothing too crazy there. Kia, this month, with a 75 days supply of inventory. Kia, if we look back to last month, where are you, Kia? Had an 83 days supply, so nothing too crazy there. GMC, 77 days supply of inventory right now, as compared to, let's go to last month, an 80 days supply of inventory. Again, nothing too crazy there.
A big one will be Mazda.
Yep, we're getting there.
Yeah,
Nissan.
Mazda's went down quite a bit.
Yep, we're going to get there. Nissan with an 82-day supply. The month prior, it had been a 93-day supply of inventory, so nothing too crazy there. We're getting closer and closer to Mazda. Infiniti had an 85-day supply. I'm not even going to jump back and forth. They had 94 back in June. Porsche with an 86-day supply. If we look back to the month of June, they had 92 in the month of June. And then, Dad, to your point, Mazda with an 86 days supply of inventory in July, as compared to a 117 days supply of inventory the month prior in June. So Mazda is doing the same thing as Hyundai. They're selling down their inventory and not replacing it with new units.
Only because they had stockpiled. And we had that conversation with Joe Lewis the other day from Joe Lewis Mazda in Savannah, Georgia. JC Lewis. And Mazda realized what was about to happen. They realized that tariffs are costing them $150 million a month. So they tried to stockpile as many Mazdas as they could, which artificially inflated the day supply. And now they're selling those pre-tariff vehicles down, and the day supply is getting back to a more normal level for them. Once again, they're replacing them, but they're not replacing them as quickly as they had been in the past.
Yeah, and I think that's a big storyline here is there may have been an opportunity pre-tariff to really hold a dealer's feet to the fire at the end of a month and try and really work them for a unicorn type car deal, versus right now, if they don't get more allocation from their manufacturer, they're going to hold on to some of that inventory a bit more, which is more broadly the trend that we're seeing in the market.
And when we spoke to Joe Lewis the other day, as he tried to explain, the day supply situation is much more
Regionalized.
regionalized than people would think. In his particular case, he's sitting on about a 2 month supply of vehicles when they would prefer to be sitting on a 3 month supply of vehicles. So he's in one of those regions that actually has fewer vehicles than what it needs, and that there's other regions out there that are well oversupplied for what the sales volumes are.
Now we're going to go to the chat in a minute here, but we do need to talk about the three brands that are in the title of today's show: Audi, Lincoln, and Ram. So this is June. This is 2 months ago. What was the days supply of inventory 2 months ago? Audi had 133 days supply. You can then see Ram there had a 114 days supply, and Lincoln had a 112 days supply of inventory. Fast forward to the latest and greatest data we have now. Ram's days supply has actually gone up, Dad, to 121 days supply. So it's gone up, meaning that customers have more negotiating leverage there.
Yeah,
Audi's days supply has gone down to 114
slightly.
days from 133 days. So Audi's selling off some inventory and not necessarily replacing it. And Lincoln was at 112, now at 117. So the situation getting worse over at Lincoln and Ram, getting a little bit better over at Audi. So those three brands in particular, though, they are at the high end of the spectrum, meaning if you're a customer out there and you're just a deal hunter for a deal hunter's sake and you want to win when you go and negotiate, those are three manufacturers that have a drastic oversupply. Audi's situation getting a little bit better month over month, but at Ram, surprisingly getting worse, and at Lincoln, surprisingly getting worse.
And as you were saying what you were just saying, I was thinking to myself, and when is a win actually a loss? Okay, for the consumer, that win that might actually be a loss is, I don't know, when you buy that Audi or that Lincoln or that Ram, you might be getting a great deal, or what appears to be a great deal, but ultimately it might actually turn out to be a loss, because you are still purchasing some of the least desirable vehicles out there in terms of how quickly they sell. And that, unfortunately for you, impacts the future value of those vehicles and negatively impacts those future values, so that they will depreciate much more quickly than, say, the more popular brands on the left side of that chart.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. If you're buying one of these vehicles new, know that if it's over on the right side, it's going to depreciate faster than if it's over on the left side, because those Toyota and Lexus and Honda and BMW and Chevrolet used cars are just going to hold their value a little bit more because they didn't have a significant price discounts when they were sold as new cars. It's a really valid and great point.
I would just suggest that one should not have a champagne championship celebration for that win when they've purchased that Audi, that Lincoln, or that Ram, because I think you'll find out that that win is actually a loss.
It could be a loss. I think it's just you need to understand what you're getting into, I think, is the most important thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Dad, let's come here to the chat. We've got from Forerunners. Thank you for the kind contribution. Looking at buying a 4x4 Ram 2500 diesel, what are the discounts looking like these days near Phoenix, Arizona? So first thing I'm going to look at here, this was actually the press vehicle that they gave me recently, which I thought was so fascinating and fun to have in the city. I went to CarEdge.com, clicked on research, and then see what others paid. Looks like we did a concierge deal recently. Man, these things get expensive.
They do indeed.
Holy cow. This was in Texas. This was back in July. $7,000 dealer discount. So there's some context here for a potential deal. Again, that was Texas, not Phoenix, Arizona. And then, Dad, I'm actually headed over here. As you all know, we have our AI agents that are talking to dealerships every single day. So this is some of the data for that. So let's see if I can get us. Let me do Ram really quickly. Let's see if we can find a 2500. Bear with me.
And
I don't
if
know.
I may, Zach,
Yeah.
Phoenix is one of the strongest new car markets in the country. The only reason I know that is because we lived there for 20 years, and the access to real quality public transportation is so limited, and the Phoenix metro area is so large, that everyone needs at least one, if not two or three vehicles in a household, because you can't depend on public transportation to get anywhere. And it's just some of the largest volume dealers in the country for many brands are located in the Phoenix metro area.
For sure. I'm just seeing here, Dad. We had one on a $74,500, $2,500, or $4,500 dealer discount plus an additional $5,500 in manufacturer rebates. So there's some context there. I'm going to do one more thing, though. Let's do this. Let's go to the car search quickly. I'm already set to being in Arizona, and we're going to do Ram, and we'll do 2,500. Let's do this. We've got Ram 2,500. 1 second. 2,500.
And we need a diesel.
Yeah, we do. Looks like they changed. Okay, there we go. 2,500. And then, yeah, we need diesel. I think that's the 6.7. No, that's the 6.4 liter V8. That's the Cummins. All right, so let's see here. These are some of the cheaper, lower trim options. Let's get one of the not tradesmen's. These are all tradesmen's. Wow, so many tradesmen's.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this one, this Laramie. 87 days supply. So it's not particularly low, to your point earlier, Dad.
Yeah, and let's face it, that's that would still be a big pickup truck area.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Southwest.
So hopefully that helps a little bit for runners. Go contact some dealerships and let's see what happens. Yep, 6.7 liters, the Cummins V8 diesel engine. Man, that thing is a big engine. We've got here, Dad.
You drove it. What did you think of it when you drove it?
I thought it was super luxurious. I thought it was crazy that it was a pickup truck. I was bewildered. I legitimately was bewildered. Had no reason to be in it, but thought it was pretty amazing. Lorraine's been asking questions about the Chevy Colorado, so let's do the same exact thing. Give me a second.
We will give you all the time you need.
CarEdge.com/research, see what others paid. Jump over here. Chevrolet. We're looking for Colorado. Let's see here. $4,000 dealer discount, $3,700 dealer discount, $3,300 dealer discount, $2,000 dealer discount, $1,500 dealer discount. So pretty wide range there, but you can see Texas, New Jersey, South Carolina, Arizona, and obviously Trail Boss ZR2. So different trim levels here as well. So Lorraine, hopefully that gives you a little bit of context for what yeah, there you go, Lorraine. What's a good price for a small Chevrolet truck? There you go. That's hopefully gives you some context, Lorraine.
I would say just under 40 grand it appears to be for
Absolutely.
those $44,000 ones.
All right, Dad, another story that I wanted to cover today, if you're up for it, would be a little bit as we're talking about these manufacturers stopping the production of electric vehicles. Well, We're getting some news from Acura this morning. You've got Acura changing course, bringing hybrid vehicles to the United States and pushing a little bit less on their EV ambitions. It seems like a lot of manufacturers are moving in this direction.
Well, I think a lot of the manufacturers have decided to jump on the Toyota train, in the sense that Toyota was one of the slowest manufacturers to commit to full battery electric vehicles, and they committed. Their strategy was to continue to build and improve their hybrid models as a bridge vehicle to ultimately, at some point in time, get people to full battery electric vehicles. And that has been a decision on Toyota's part that has worked extremely well. And a lot of manufacturers have finally taken notice of that and decided that they're really going to get into the hybrid business. The picture there is the picture of the new battery electric RSX that will be coming out, which will be the first full battery electric vehicle on a 100% Honda platform. So it won't be built off of the GM platform that they've been using for the Prologue and the ZDX.
So it is interesting, Dad. There's a continuing change in approach here for how these manufacturers are thinking about it. It kind of makes sense, obviously, with tax credits going away, with these vehicles not selling. It'll be interesting to see as it continues to evolve.
Oh, absolutely. And for years I talked about that I always thought that you had to have a way to get people to go from ICE to EV, and you couldn't just instantly go from ICE to EV. You needed a vehicle as a bridge to get them there. And I always felt, I agreed with Toyota that I thought that was the move. Um, and and so many people prefer a hybrid. Whether it's right or it's wrong, I don't know. But the the fastest growing segment of auto sales is in hybrid powertrains.
Yep.
So, at a certain point, sometimes as a manufacturer, it actually makes sense to build what the customer wants to buy. As, it isn't always if we build it, they will come. What we have found in many, many cases with EVs is if you build it, they will sit.
Yeah.
And in way too many cases, that's what's been happening. And so I just think it makes so much sense to have that bridge vehicle that gets people ultimately, if that's where they want to go, to a full battery electric vehicle.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, Pops, let's call it a show a little bit early today. Again, folks, if we can help you out with anything, check out CarEdge.com. We are here and happy to help. Obviously, if you want to skip the dealership altogether, we can support you in that way with our car buying services too. But please, folks, check it out back on the website, CarEdge.com. But Dad, let's call it a little bit early. We'll get into the weekend a couple minutes earlier than normal. How's that sound,
buddy?
to you?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm excited. I might have to rush somewhere. I don't know where, but maybe I can figure somewhere out.
Folks, we'll be back on Monday with more Car Edge Live. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, enjoy the upcoming weekend. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you on Monday.
Yep. Have a great football weekend, everybody. I know it's preseason game too, but it's still football.